The Matrix is a film that forever changed the landscape in Hollywood, featuring some of the most groundbreaking visual effects of its time, iconic imagery, and impeccably choreographed fight sequences of a major Hollywood film. It took inspiration from Hong Kong's action films, as well as anime like Ghost in the Shell and Akira. It became a huge success when it was released in 1999, and earned a fair amount of critical acclaim, even taking home 4 Academy Awards. Its 2 sequels were received less enthusiastically by both audiences and critics. The films instantly became a pop culture phenomenon that we've all seen parodied numerous times, earning praise for their action, visual effects, and general concept, criticism for its wooden performances, confusing scenes, and cliché dialogue. But there's a whole wealth of insight the films provide from a philosophical standpoint, something present in all 3 films in the trilogy. The first film largely interprets Plato's allegory of the cave. Imagine a cave. Inside are people who were born and have spent their entire lives there, chained into a fixed position, only able to see the wall in front of them. As far as they know, this is the entire world. They've never known or seen anything else, so what basis would they have to expect anything to exist outside of the cave? This is the basic idea of the Matrix. How do we know what our reality really is?
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
Let's continue the thought experiment. What happens when a prisoner is freed? It's likely that he wouldn't leave on his own volition out of fear, but if taken against his will and brought out to the world above, after a tough climb, eventually his eyes would adjust from the darkness, eventually able to look upon the sun and gain the knowledge within its light. In Plato's analogy of the sun is a metaphor for the nature of reality and knowledge concerning it. The sun is knowledge. Light itself is truth and understanding, or enlightenment.
Gnosticism frames the fundamental human problem in terms of ignorance, the solution being enlightenment. We are a soul or a spirit that's trapped in a material body, and we need to get out because we are divine sparks and we don't belong here.
Unplugging from the Matrix, stepping out of the cave, is the first step towards gnosis, which leads to enlightenment. But the humans scorched the skies in an attempt to win the war against the machines. They're still separated from truth and wisdom even outside of the Matrix, in another cave of sorts, with a greater spiritual journey still ahead. Towards the end of the first film, we learn that this current Matrix is actually an updated version. The original version was designed as a paradise for humanity, but most end up rejecting the program, unable to accept it as reality.
Some believed that we lacked the programming language to describe your perfect world, but I believe that as a species, human beings define their reality through misery and suffering.
It's an interesting idea that human nature requires suffering, that we as a species have a built-in need for chaos and struggle, for sacrifice. Ideas present in many of the world's leading religions, which the Wachowskis allude to throughout the trilogy. While the first film is mostly a crash course in epistemology with some references to Christianity, the second and third films dive much deeper into religious philosophy from the East. A fundamental belief in Indian religions like Hinduism or Buddhism is the concept of samsara. The body dies, but the soul is eternal, reincarnated into other physical forms in an infinite cycle where the soul is left to wander and suffer. Every soul must embark on a spiritual quest to attain self-liberation from samsara through enlightenment by uniting body and mind with spirit. This is called moksha in Hinduism, though you may have heard the Buddhist term nirvana to describe it as well. Let's recall this scene at the end of the first film with Agent Smith.
I hate this place. This zoo, this prison, this reality, whatever you want to call it. I can't stand it any longer. I must get out of here. I must get free. Once Zion is destroyed, there is no need for me to be here. Do you understand?
Smith and Neo are both on the same path. They want the same thing. They are both trying to free themselves from this cycle of suffering, but they're polar opposites, yin and yang to one another. Neo wants to liberate the people of Zion and eventually free those still imprisoned within the Matrix. Smith wants to bring an end to it all, the Matrix and the real world outside. Smith and Neo are both unique to this iteration of the Matrix. Never before has a program gone rogue and set to destroy both humanity and the machines, nor have we ever seen a one like Neo. In all previous versions, an eventual anomaly presents itself in the form of the One, whose path leads him to the Architect. Zion is destroyed, the Matrix is rebooted, and the One takes with them 23 people to rebuild Zion. This has been done 5 times before. Every other Chosen One has made the same choice, because failure to comply will lead to a system failure within the Matrix, killing everyone plugged in as well as everyone in Zion, effectively wiping out the species. This is the purpose of the One.
It is interesting reading your reactions. Your 5 predecessors were, by design, based on a similar predication, a contingent affirmation that was meant to create a profound attachment to the rest of your species, facilitating the function of the One. While the others experienced this in a very general way, your experience is far more specific, vis-a-vis love.
Trinity.
He's willing to sacrifice anything, even the entire human race, to save her. Notice the TVs, all seemingly showing different timelines, different eventualities for the same moment. Most of what the Architect says triggers different responses from Neo, save for one. When left with the choice between saving humanity or saving Trinity, he makes the choice no other one before him did. He catches her in time and removes the bullet she's been hit with, but the Architect's words prove to be prophetic.
Already I can see the chain reaction. The chemical precursors that signal the onset of an emotion, designed specifically to overwhelm logic and reason. An emotion that is already blinding you from the simple and obvious truth. She is going to die, and there is nothing you can do to stop it.
He would have done anything to protect her, but the path of the One requires sacrifice. Losing her was his penultimate challenge before he's ready to accept his fate. His final challenge comes in the form of confronting Smith, where he must make his final sacrifice.
You have to die to resurrect spirit, and it's a very common motif, not just in the Christian tradition. It's a very common motif in Buddhism. You have to die to your separate ego in order to awaken to being one with everything.
There is a belief in Hinduism called Brahman, the ultimate reality that unites all things. It is the source from which all things are born, to which all things must also return. By defeating Smith and allowing himself to die, he is reunited with spirit, identifying his soul's place within Brahman, or in the films, the Source, thus bringing an end to the endless cycle of samsara and liberating Zion. Neo becomes the true savior of humanity because he succeeds where every other one in every previous iteration of the Matrix failed.
If you look at the whole trilogy, it's really outlining this whole general view of body, mind, and spirit, what has to happen when they're alienated, and that it can be reunited when somebody, either the individual or a savior helping others, reconnects with spirit. And that realigns all these different dimensions, which makes the full integrated human being. And then when that happens, then the matrix itself is dissolved because it's no longer alienated. The machines showed up in the gross realm as horrifying attacking machines only when men were alienated from spirit, because that's how spirit appears when you're alienated from it. It appears as Smith attacking you in the Matrix and as the machines attacking you in Zion, or the gross body. And when spirit is recontacted, both of those revert to their natural expressions of light and peace.
These are just some of the many philosophical ideas the Wachowskis explore in the Matrix trilogy. There are many other illusions and thought experiments like Robert Nozick's experience machine or Descartes' theory of a great deceiver. It touches on theories brought forth by great philosophers like Kant and Hume. It meditates on the questions of reality, causality, and free will, not to mention the obvious commentary on technology or a submissive society. The films may have their flaws, some with writing, some with the performances, some of the CG looks very outdated by today's standards, but One has to admire the Wachowskis for attempting something never done before in a major Hollywood film.
This is one of the very few movies that has tried to make this sweeping statement about these grand dimensions of human existence that have been touched upon by the great traditions for 2,000 or 3,000 years. And that's why I think you have to applaud the extraordinary ambition of it. The fact that they would simply sit down and try to do that is, to me, astonishing. I mean, that alone puts it in a very unique category. And I think that's why it's so exclusive.